She was laughing so hard I couldn't understand a single word. What did you say? She choked out, "No words." It's my younger daughter's favorite summary statement about something too ridiculous to believe or some behavior so scandalous it defies explanation. She says it a lot lately. No words, except those, apparently. This is the same daughter who responds to other people's outrageous good fortune with a simple same. The friend who became a Rhodes Scholar at age 17, same. The 18-year-old Canadian woman, this was in the news this week, who bought her first legal bottle of booze and $1 million lottery ticket at the same gas station. My daughter said, same. The woman on Facebook who reportedly gave birth to kittens, same. My daughter may well be channeling other women, ancient women, grieving women, who showed up at Jesus' tomb early one morning. The only conversation among them was, who will roll away the stone? Maybe they should have thought of that before they left home, but the question seems more idle reflection than real worry. Did they talk about other things on the way? The weather, their kids, Loyola? Or perhaps they talked of things more consequential, events of the last 3 days, or their concerns for Jesus' orphaned disciples. We don't know, because Mark doesn't say. But we do know that when they arrived at the tomb early that morning, nothing was same, and they had no words. The stone was gone. Someone had solved that little problem for them already. But the place that Jesus' body should have been was instead inhabited by a young man, a nameless young man wearing a white robe. Don't be alarmed, he said. Jesus is up and gone, but you can find him. He'll be in Galilee, where he first found you. Still, no words. But apparently they didn't need to speak. Mark tells us 3 things about these dumb-struck mourners. The terror, the amazement, and the fear were written on their faces. And then, in an unexpected plot twist, the women ran away without saying a word to anyone. Of course, someone must have said something to somebody. If they hadn't, none of us would be here. If they hadn't told the story of Jesus' tomb, we'd still be sleeping off the game that we watched last night instead of praising God who brings life from death. Someone had to say something to someone, but on that long ago morning, in the confusion of the moment, there were no words. My father was a force of nature, more hurricane than spring shower. Everything about him was big. His voice, his stature, his hands, his opinions. But about a year ago, and almost exactly at this time, he started to diminish, everything about him growing smaller. Chocolate ice cream no longer enticed. He could stare out a window for hours and say nothing. Once, just to test him, I said something of a provocative political nature, as you can imagine I might do, something that would typically have enraged him. He said nothing. There was no fight left in him. Something was wrong. Tests and reports, conversations and more tests. Finally, we had an appointment with an oncologist who was going to put all the pieces together. All of us kids, there are 8 of us who all look just like this. It's a problem for my brothers. All of us kids wanted to be there for the appointment, but time and distance didn't make that possible. So the oncologist's office set up a conference call, 4 of us in the room with Dad, and 4 of us on many coasts phoning in. My mom was too frail to be there. As the oncologist reviewed the reports, which we had all received by email that morning, that was her first mistake, she fielded questions from 8 inquisitors. I wasn't in the room, but I imagine her an octopus with a mitt on each hand, grabbing questions from 8 inquisitors. She talked with us for an hour, answering every question, calming every speculation. The only one in the room who was silent was my dad. A less gracious physician would have said, "Would you all just shut up and let your father speak?" But she didn't. Instead, she stepped in and said, "Mr. Post, you are so fortunate to have children who love you so much. But do you have anything to ask? Anything to say?" Over the phone, I heard a long silence. And my sister said, "He just shook his head." I later learned that when he returned to the care facility where he lived with my mom, he stopped his wheelchair in the door of their room. My mom looked up from her crossword puzzle, and my oldest brother reported that between these two had shared life's joys and sorrows for 62 years. There were no words, just a long, sad gaze and a slow tear. Sometimes there are no words. But no words makes us uncomfortable. No words made the other gospel writers uncomfortable as well. Only Mark ends the story with silence, the only sound that of feet thumping back down the path. Matthew, Luke, and John tell of dazzling angels and frightened soldiers, Mary Magdalene's mistaking Jesus for the gardener, and Peter's disbelief. The other gospel writers report post-resurrection appearances in Emmaus, in Jerusalem, on the beach, and at some point to 500 others. We know those gospel writers tell the truth because somebody had to have told what they saw at the tomb. But Mark tells a truth too. A silent truth to which we can all respond. Same. In times of either pernicious sorrow or profound joy, the best words are often no words. A silence finally broken by what the dark poet Leonard Cohen describes as a holy or a broken Alleluia. My dad started to die the day he got the news about the cancer. And in those 6 months of his dying, he often spoke of heaven. He had a very concrete picture of how it would go. And the thing he most longed for was to see his mother. He had missed her every day of the 25 years she had been gone. After Dad died, I asked my mom, who also has a vivid and concrete vision of heaven, what Dad and Grandma would have said when they saw each other after 25 years. Mom didn't hesitate. She said, "They didn't say anything. But I can see their smiles from here." There were no words that first Easter morning. Eventually, there were words of delight and disbelief, confusion and courage, oh my's, and even a smattering of alleluias. But today we stand with the women at the tomb, our hearts too full to speak. The resurrection is real. Death has been defeated. Jesus goes before us down every road. We believe all of this to be true. But some days we are not as wise as my father's oncologist, and we cannot put the pieces together. We cannot trust our hearts to tell a truth that our eyes simply don't see. That is why on this cold Easter morning we read Mark's Easter story. Mark tells a truth not only of Jesus' resurrection, but also of our lives. For the promise of life, not only after death, but also in the deaths we die every day, we have no words, except maybe one. a holy, a broken. Hallelujah.